All right, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me here at TechEd Europe. My name is Simon Perryman. I'm a technical evangelist with Microsoft Corporate based in Redmond, Seattle, Washington. So my job as an evangelist is really to just go speak to customers, get them excited about technology. And so my goal today with this presentation is to give you an overview, an introduction to the Microsoft Private Cloud. Now, as we speak to a lot of customers, we hear all different types of feedback about the private cloud. From we love it to this just doesn't make sense to me. So one of the goals that I want to have as part of this session is to really give you an overview of not just what it is, but what the benefits are to you and to your organization. So first of all, we're going to start with a quiz here. So raise your hand. Sorry, don't raise your hand. Just yell out the answer, okay? So first question, these are all true and false. Does virtualization equal the private cloud? No, that is correct. False. Virtualization does not equal the private cloud. There's a lot more to private cloud than just virtualization. Second question, does System Center Virtual Machine Manager equal the private cloud? Oh, come on, quiet audience. No, false. No, there's still a lot more than just having this data center management needed for the private cloud. How about number 3? The Microsoft Private Cloud is a product that you can buy. I hear some yeses here, but we're actually going to dispel that myth. It is not. It is not a single product, but it's actually a collection of software, hardware, management capabilities, as well as customization. So there's a lot of different components to the private cloud that we're going to cover. Next question. Is the most recent version of System Center, so 2007 to 2010, considered a private cloud? No, that is also not true. System Center 2012 is where we've really introduced our private cloud story. And you're going to see that as we kind of go through, demo some of the capabilities. We're really going to show you, all of the benefits that you have with the Microsoft Private Cloud. Next question, final question. Can you go and buy separate System Center 2012 products? The answer to that is no as well. We have changed our licensing for System Center 2012. When you go and buy System Center 2012, you now get everything. And the reason for that is we want people to be encouraged to actually use all the products in the private cloud. We found when we were just selling VMM separately, Ops Manager separately, people would really only buy that one product. And so what we're really trying to do is enable you to have all of the tools you need to build this private cloud environment. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to cover the 10 most common questions I get about the private cloud, and we're going to use those questions to really help explain what are the key concepts of the private cloud, what are the benefits of the private cloud. So here's the 10 questions that we're going to cover. I'll let them roll out here. Now, meanwhile, I did have a broad set of demos available. Unfortunately, we have lost internet connection throughout the entire venue, so I'm going to try to see what I can get up and running in the meantime. Unfortunately, this is a limitation of the venue, a problem with the venue. It does reflect badly on me, and I do apologize for that because we had a very, very interactive session, a lot of demos prepared, but we're still trying to get through what we can here. So first question that we have, though. What exactly is the Microsoft Private Cloud? How do we define it? What are the benefits to the IT pro? Well, really, we say the private cloud is our new model for IT delivery. It's offering IT as a service. All these different components of information technology. You, as an IT professional, we want you to offer those services for people to go and purchase. Sorry, not just necessarily purchase, but just to use in the environment. So what does it consist of? Well, we say that there are 4 key capabilities that are critical to a private cloud. First of all is pooled resources. And what that means is we take all of the hardware in the environment, we aggregate it together, and it can be used by any service, any application, whether that's your storage, networking, compute power. We don't want to bind a specific service to a specific server anymore. Think about the advantages we had with live migration of virtual machines in the last release of Windows Server. Huge advantages. You had the mobility. You had the high availability. we're now trying to extend that model beyond just virtualization to any type of service in the environment. As soon as you need new hardware, go deploy it. You don't need to go and purchase a specific server for it. You have those resources available to you in your environment. Next, we have self-service. So self-service is enabling your end users to be more productive, to make requests, to be proactive, and ultimately the goal here is to save you time as an IT administrator. Next, we talk about elasticity. Elasticity, popular concept in the cloud. It means we can readily grow, readily expand as demand is needed. But another important aspect about that is also contraction. So not just let's grow as our service gets more popular, but when that service is no longer needed, let's shrink again. Let's free up those resources, put them back in our pool. One of the most common examples that we use when we talk about that are movie releases, movie premieres. The website gets really popular up to the launch of the movie. Movie happens, it loses a lot of traffic. So this is just a great example of how you get resources just for a specific event, use them as you need, but more importantly, reuse them again later, put them back in that pool of hardware. And finally, we talk about usage-based. And what we mean by this is we keep track of how much you're using, how much resources, so that we can charge you or bill you for only what you need. But another component about resource usage as well is not just being able to track how much is used, but being able to use that data intelligently for your business. If you can track the growth of an application or a service, you can make better purchasing predictions in the future. You understand how popular the service is, how fast it's going to grow, whether you're going to need to buy new hardware just for that service next quarter. Now, really, as we kind of wrap up the Microsoft definition, our key focus are two technologies to form the Microsoft private cloud. We use Windows Server, 2008 R2, soon 2012, and System Center 2012. These give us our operating system plus our management layer. Now, I'm going to switch over to a demo. I have one up and running, and we're just going to take a quick overview of what exactly is a cloud? How do we create this? So what we have up here is Virtual Machine Manager in System Center 2012. Now, there's a new concept of a cloud. This is kind of a familiar UI if you've done VMM in the past, but we've now added this new layer called the Fabric. And within our Fabric, within all of our services, we have this concept of the cloud, right? And our cloud is our group of pooled resources. So included in this is our storage, networking, load balancers, virtual IP addresses, a lot of components. And that's our organization's single large private cloud. But we realized people want more granularity, whether it's assigning a group of resources just to a particular business unit or a geographic region. We want to be able to break up this large cloud that we have into multiple smaller private clouds. Each of these private clouds we could give different security policies to, different templates, different access, different control. So different consumers of each of these clouds have the flexibility to really manage their own cloud independently. So you have one large cloud for your organization. Within that, you could create multiple smaller clouds. And that's what we're going to do in this demo. We are going to go and create a smaller private cloud out of our large private cloud. So first, we're going to give the private cloud a name. Next, we're going to say what host group can be used in our private cloud. And a host group is a collection of individual servers. So we say this group of servers can be accessed by this private cloud. Next, we say what logical networks can this private cloud access. So I have my two networks here. Say, do we want to add any load balancers to the cloud? So this gives us some distributed access, some redundancy in our environment. We're going to add one of these load balancers. I don't have any virtual IP address profiles. I don't have any storage configured yet, so we'll skip these steps. And now I say, what library file do I want to use as part of my cloud? So the Virtual Machine Manager library, this is where we keep track of all of the different resources that we may want to deploy in our environment. Virtual machines, VHDs, templates, guest OS profiles, hardware profiles. So what we're doing, we're saying that this private cloud has access to this library. Now, if you're working with different geographies, maybe you have a cloud for the Americas, a cloud for Europe, you're probably going to want to select that library server, which is physically closest to that cloud, so that if people are copying 10 gigabyte VHD files, it's geographically closer, less data transfer. So this is an example of how you have that flexibility based on your location. So I confirm my VMM library, and now I get to assign capacity to my cloud. Now, remember, this is a small sub-cloud as part of my larger cloud. Now, I probably want to limit how many resources this small cloud can take from all of the resources in my organization. And so using this capacity, we can set limits. And we can say that my small cloud can only take a maximum number of virtual machines, a maximum amount of memory. And this is really, again, just to divide it up, give you some granularity, so that this cloud doesn't consume all the resources in your data center. So I'm going to set this up to a maximum of 12 gigabytes of memory and a maximum of 6 virtual machines. So no matter what I have in my entire data center, this cloud, this business unit, only gets this set of resources. Next, I get to specify what types of servers my cloud can have. A big advantage of System Center 2012 is its multi-hypervisor management. We no longer just manage Hyper-V. We continue to manage VMware. We've added new capabilities that I'll show you later. And now we manage Citrix as well. So even within this cloud, I could go and deploy my VMs to different types of hosts, different types of hypervisors. I get to confirm all of my settings. And then I see this private cloud that I've just created here. I have up to 12 gigabytes of memory, 12 gigabytes available. So what I've done here is I've kind of set the foundations. I have all of the resources in my organization, and I've carved it up for a specific business unit to use. So that was our first demo, creating private clouds. Now, next thing we're going to talk about is this question that I asked earlier. Is virtualization the same thing as private cloud? Well, hopefully you guys have the answer of that now. No, it is not the same thing. Common misconception. Virtualization is critical, but there's a lot more than just virtualization in our private cloud. Now, virtualization, it gives us our high availability. It gives us our mobility. It allows us to abstract our virtual machines from any underlying physical resources. It's easy to deploy. It scales well. You need a new service, you detect it, go deploy a new VM. It contracts well as well, easy to free up resources. Rapid deployment. We can pre-configure templates, we can pre-configure different types of services, and it allows multi-tenancy. So having lots of users attached to that same virtual machine, attached to that same environment at once. But the private cloud has more than just virtualization. Big advantages, again, are pools of computing resources, right? Virtualization, it can sometimes take advantage of them within a single server, maybe within the scope of a cluster. But now we're extending that across the entire data center. We now have improved self-service. There was a self-service portal in VMM 2008 R2. Had some limitations, let's be honest. There's now a new component in System Center 2012 called App Controller that gives you end-to-end self-service management in both public and in private clouds. And I have a demo of that a little later as well. We have our usage-based chargeback, so our metering, seeing usage, charging people appropriately, having better predictions and financial planning. And then our elasticity and automation throughout the stack. So virtualization, critical. But what we want to do is take you to the next step and show you the next step of what we mean with a private cloud. So I'm now going to show you a demo of creating what is called a service template. Now, with our traditional model of virtual machines, you go deploy a VM, and that entire service lives within one VM. If you have a service that spreads across multiple VMs, you go deploy one, go deploy the second, go deploy the third, configure storage across them, configure networking across them. We wanted to make that easy. We've realized that in most enterprises, if you have business-critical servers, they require multiple tiers. Maybe you have the back-end the back-end SQL database tier, front-end web tier, middle business intelligence tier. And so what we wanted to do, we wanted to be able to package all of these tiers up into a single self-contained unit that we call a service and offer that service to people. So it could contain multiple VMs, multiple layers, multiple tiers, load balancers, networking, storage. All of this can come pre-configured. So when you say, I need a new service, someone requests that, you could give them everything packaged all together. So again, it's going beyond just virtual machines to doing any type of service in the environment. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and create a service template for you. This is again using Virtual Machine Manager. This is a new feature as part of it called the Service Template Designer. And this is going to allow me to encapsulate multiple layers, multiple resources, pre-configure it, and then save it as a template so that every time I want to go and deploy it, I get the exact same thing every time. You're going to hear this concept of standardization come up again and again through this presentation because we really believe this is critical for a private cloud environment. Always offer the same thing every time. You get the same results every time. You get happy customers every time. One problem that we've found from speaking to IT departments is someone wants to go and deploy a 3-level service. Sometimes one IT admin will deploy it one way. Another guy will deploy it another way. You have different response times, different service levels based on how it was configured, how it was deployed. That makes it harder to troubleshoot, more expensive to manage. So what we really wanted to do is drive standardization through IT. If you need this service, you get the exact same thing every time, guaranteed. So that way, we know it's going to perform the same way. We know it's always deployed correctly. So better for the IT department here. So I'm going to go give it a name, my private cloud service. I'm going to select a 3-tier application, and this is my designer. Now, what I have here, I created some virtual machine templates. Templates, we had those in VMM 2008 R2. It basically defines a set of hardware requirements, guest operating system requirements for a particular VM. But remember, we're going beyond just a single VM now. So what we can actually do is for our 3 tiers, first tier, second tier, third tier, we could go and apply a virtual machine template to each of them. So in my first tier, it's going to be my web. Second tier is going to be my application. And my third tier is going to be my SQL template. So basically, I have these 3 separate VMs. I'm combining them together to form a service. This is why we say going beyond virtualization here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go take a look at some of the properties of this particular service, this particular tier. And you can see that a lot of this information is pre-configured. So every time you deploy the service, you've pre-configured it once, you get the same information inside the VM every time. So I get to see what's the default instance for this particular layer of my service. So I have 1 VM. If I need to scale it out, I can easily add a second, a third, a fourth, and in this case, I have a maximum of up to 5 VMs in that 1 tier. And we can scale up on demand, no downtime. Think of it as a hot add for a tier. Add new tiers, no downtime. As we actually look at the application itself, you could go and pre-configure app v packages that live within our virtual machine. So this is saying, hey, I have my virtual machine. I need this particular application within it. Let me go pre-configure all of the standard information that will be consistent every single time I go and deploy this application. So I go and set some pre-script stuff, some post-script stuff, enter some passwords. I have all of that information available to me. Now I'm just going to save it here, and I'm going to go and resize it. And so you can see this is a reasonably complicated environment here, multiple tiers. I have 3 NICs here, configured all on my network Contoso. Have my public network up here. I have my service name. So we've been able to do kind of a lot already here. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and take a look at one of the services that I've created earlier and just show you some of the other properties that we have here. So I'm going to go and configure this for deployment. So I've pre-created this. I'm going to now put it in production. It's available to me in my library. So here I get to specify a name. I get to go and specify a host group where I'm going to place it. And down here, I'm going to go ahead and pre-configure some information that's going to be consistent across all of my computers. So if you're an administrator that's managing this entire service, you're probably going to want a shared username, shared password, make it simple to go and log on and access each of these services. So I can pre-configure this information. Next, I get to specify the name of each of these different virtual machines. I do this in one location, so I don't need to log on to each server, configure it, reboot it, join the domain. All of that gets done for me ahead of time. Now, so here we can see I've got my pre-configured information. I've got my services. I've got my different layers. I can click deploy. I deploy my service, and now I've pushed it out in the environment. So again, moving beyond virtualization, taking it from just a single VM to this complicated topology. That's what System Center 2012 can do for us now. So hopefully that's convinced you, hey, maybe there's some big benefits, but what exactly do you need to do to go and get a Microsoft private cloud? So I tested you guys on this already, but the Microsoft private cloud is not a single product. You cannot just go to Microsoft.com or go to your local retail store and buy a private cloud. It's one of the few times where you will actually hear Microsoft say, it's not easy. It's not 3 clicks and you have a private cloud set up. You know, we like to tell you that with lots of other products. But in this case, it is going to require some special work to go get this running in your environment. Now, first layer that you need is obviously the hardware. Most of you probably have this in the environment already, but Microsoft also has a program called the Private Cloud Fast Track that actually allows you to buy fully pre-configured solutions from a bunch of major vendors. These come with multiple servers, they're clustered, they have redundant networks, they have NIC teams, they have SQL databases pre-configured, and they can even come with all of the different System Center components preloaded, pre-configured for you. So if you're just getting going with the private cloud, this is certainly an option you should consider to reduce that setup time. Now, another big advantage of using these private cloud fast tracks, and you're going to see this soon with System Center 2012, is if you have a power cable, you know, plug it in, give it power, redundant power. You have redundant Ethernet cables, plug those in. You can actually configure everything straight from Virtual Machine Manager with just an internet connection. You don't even need to log on to those servers to actually go get everything up and running. Now, next layer that we talk about is our software. Currently, Windows Server 2008 R2, Service Pack 1. And we want to emphasize that you want to use Service Pack 1. The reason for that is it includes the feature of dynamic memory. This is a Hyper-V feature that allows you to get better consolidation ratios on a single host by sharing virtual machine memory. So definitely want to use Service Pack 1. And when Windows Server 2012 comes out, we'll of course be recommending the upgrade there. Now, you need to have the key infrastructure roles: directory services, AD, DNS, DHCP, failover clustering, Hyper-V, group policy, PowerShell. Those are for your physical servers. Within the guest OS, you go put your applications, SQL, Exchange, line of business applications. Now, there is a full list if you go to KB 957006, Microsoft Knowledge Base article. It has a very, very complete list of all of the Microsoft products that run inside Hyper-V. And it's updated almost weekly every time we come up with a new product. So if you're wondering, will my service work well in Hyper-V? It probably will, but you can go back and always double check this. Now, Microsoft, it has very, very strict requirements for engineering teams to make sure that their products work inside a virtualized environment. Prior to this role as an evangelist, I actually spent 4 years as an engineer, a program manager on the clustering and high availability team. And one of my roles was doing the release management, meaning making sure that we met every single requirement to ship the product. Now, for an engineering team, we have what Microsoft calls the common engineering criteria. It's a checklist that's 144 pages long. Dozens of things on each page. And for every Microsoft product to ship, it needs to go and meet every one of these requirements. So these are things such as supporting IPv4, supporting IPv6, working in Active Directory, kind of the common things. But one of the requirements now that every single Microsoft product has to work inside Hyper-V. So hopefully, that's encouraging as you're thinking, I need to go deploy a new service. Will it work in a virtualized environment? You should feel pretty comfortable that it will. But you can always go back, check out 957.006 for the details. Now, the next layer we talk about is the management layer. This is really where System Center 2012 comes into play. With our management layer, this allows you to centralize this operations of the large infrastructure. You have dozens of servers, hundreds of servers, maybe even thousands of servers. You really want to try to simplify that management. And so we've tried to design System Center 2012 to be a central utility that gives you that ability. And it doesn't just manage Hyper-V hosts. Again, we do Citrix, we do VMware. We can manage those as well. But beyond that, there's also a set of tools called the Solutions Accelerators. Now, you may be familiar with some of the more common ones, such as the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, the VMM 2008 R2 Self-Service Portal. These are two of the most common ones. But basically, these Solutions Accelerators have been released by Microsoft after the products based on customers' requests. Companies are saying, hey, VMM doesn't do this. It doesn't have a self-service portal. So Microsoft goes and builds one. We offer these products for free. So there's a great set of solutions here you can use if you're looking for kind of additional features, additional functionality to get towards this private cloud. One that I really want to highlight as well is the Microsoft Assessment and Planning Toolkit, also known as MAP. What this utility does is it scans all of the servers in your environment. It looks at what's running on them. And then it makes recommendations towards how you can move your current infrastructure towards the private cloud by suggesting servers and services that you can virtualize, areas where you can consolidate, ways to improve your networking, best practices you're not following that can improve your performance. So really, check out this toolkit if you're thinking about moving to this highly virtualized or this private cloud model, and it'll just give you some best practices. And beyond that, it generates a nice report detailing and inventorying every server in your environment and what actions you would need to take to go and move towards this model of a private cloud. So if your boss gives you a task, go analyze the environment, I want to move to a private cloud, go run this utility, and it's going to get you most of the way there and pre-generate those reports for you. But the final layer we have, beyond the physical hardware, the operating system, the management, is our customization. Now, what we're trying to do here is we're not trying to come in and say, throw out all of your old stuff, buy all new Microsoft products, and you have a private cloud. What we really realize is that this move to the private cloud model, it's gradual. You don't push a button and suddenly you have a private cloud. It's something that takes time. It's something that evolves. So what we want to tell you to do is don't throw out your legacy hardware. Keep it. It will still work. But what you want to look at doing is integrating. If you still have VMware, don't throw it out, but you can now manage it with System Center 2012. You have old hardware, great, System Center 2012 can manage it. But you might need some customization as well, especially around specific line of business applications you have. So how do you get your custom.exe application easily deployed inside a virtual machine or a service template? That's going to be the type of customization that you'll need to do. Now, Microsoft, it does have a consulting service. They offer the customization. So if you don't have in-house experts, you can certainly rely on Microsoft or other partners out there that can do it for you. So now I'm going to show you an example of how we can go and get some deeper insight into our environment by monitoring the network. So regardless of what type of networking components you have today, we're going to show you that System Center 2012 gives you some great visibility, some great insight into going and managing those components. So what I have open here is System Center 2012 Operations Manager. One of the new areas of the dashboard is the network management feature. So this comes built in, no additional add-on, no additional installation. And what this does is it goes and it scans your entire infrastructure and finds all of your networking devices. Now, it communicates by IMPI, which is a network communication protocol. So as long as your devices can speak over IPMI, we can go interact with it, we can learn about it, and we can go and monitor it in our environment. So what we've basically done here is I have this large distributed network environment. I've configured Ops Manager, and it's gone out. It's found the first router connected to my Operations Manager computer. From there, it contacts everything else that's connected to it, whether it's other networking components, other servers. From there, it goes and branches out again and again and again, so that it's able to scan and inventory the entire environment. And these aren't just routers. This is any networking component, switches, hubs, wireless endpoints, even load balancers. We can go manage that entire infrastructure straight through Ops Manager. So what you see with this built-in network vicinity dashboard is all of our networking devices that we have. It takes a look at the average response time. So how quickly are we speaking to it? How quickly is it responding to pings? We look at the highest CPU utilization. So maybe this also not only covers networking devices, this can also cover endpoints connected to those devices, including servers. So as we look at different CPU usage, this is looking at how performant each of these components are. Maybe you have a switch that's overloaded. It's slowing down network traffic for your environment. Maybe you have a particular server that's running at 100%, and so that's making the network slow because it's trying to get this information to the server, but that server's overloaded. So nice, easy-to-use summary. And then, of course, interfaces with the highest utilization. What's being hit the most across my environment? So what we can now do is we could go and take a look at some of our other networking devices here. We can take a look at this particular router. And again, all of this goes through IPMI, so I never had to configure anything. We went out, we auto-detected this, and we auto-populated all of this information straight into Operations Manager. So I get the IP addresses, I get the build type, all of the different components that I need to learn. What exactly is this network device doing? Now, this is one of my favorite features that we have. This is called the Network Vicinity Dashboard. And this is a great example of just showing how we go scan that environment and how we make it easy for you to understand the information we're displaying. So what we're doing is we're starting from this first router. And from this first router, we're going to make one hop and look at everything that's connected to it. In this case, it's just another router. But let's go and expand that. I've now gone to 3 hops, where I could go up to 5 hops. And so what I've done here is I've taken my first router, look at what's connected to it, look at what's connected to that, and what's connected to that. And so this gives me a broad overview of how all of the networking in my environment is configured. And I can see from these green connections that everything's looking healthy. But we also have the ability to go and zoom in, zoom out, take a look at the different device names that we have. But then we also can show computers that are attached to them. So we're not just showing our network topology, but we're actually showing those endpoints that are attached to all the networks. Again, all of this is pre-configured. Just launch Operations Manager, let it load, and you have all this information available to you. So next question, will I need to change my data center? Well, we have touched on this a little already, and hopefully you realize by now that the answer is no, because we have this great integration throughout the stack. You've probably heard one of the marketing terms, cross-platform from the metal up, and what that really means is we have the ability to manage literally everything from the physical servers, the bare metal, all the way up to the different application frameworks. So as we look at the hardware, the physical servers, we have the private cloud fast track. You can go purchase pre-configured solutions or use your existing hardware. We have our multi-hypervisor management. We manage Hyper-V, we manage VMware, we manage Citrix. Again, all with System Center 2012. We manage different types of guest operating systems. So this is the OS that's running inside our virtual machine. Of course, we support Hyper-V, Windows Client, but we also support SUSE, Red Hat on Linux, CentOS, other types of Linux applications and operating systems. We can monitor them, we can deploy them. We then have third-party management integration. So if you're using BMC Remedy, you're using some other type of IT ticketing system, you're using EMC to manage your storage or Dell manage your storage, we integrate with all of those different third-party management solutions. What you're going to find is, as long as there is a programmatic interface for your hardware, we can manage it. So when you're thinking about purchasing new hardware, purchasing new software, and you want to integrate it into a private cloud environment, you want to have automation, we need to have a programmatic interface. APIs, function calls, we can script with it, it has PowerShell commandlets, batch files. As long as we have a way to interact with it programmatically, automatically, we can slide it into our private cloud environment. Where we get stuck is any time where you need a graphical user interface to go and deploy something. If you need to click here, click here, click here. That doesn't fit well in our private cloud model because that means there's manual operations that are needed to go and configure something, to go and fix something. So think about these new investments. Think about having a programmatic interface. It can fit in. And finally, as we go up the stack, we look at the application frameworks. Of course, we support Microsoft's .NET framework, but we also support Java, PHP, Ruby on Rails, basically all these different types of development frameworks, development environments that may run inside a virtual machine. We can monitor, we can deploy, we can configure. So the answer, will I need to change my data center? We really hope that that's going to be a no. There should be no reason to throw out your existing hardware, no reason to buy everything brand new. So long as we have a programmatic interface, we can speak to it, we can manage it using System Center 2012. So this next demo, I'm going to give you an example of a bare metal deployment. And what I mean by that is, I got new servers, I plugged in the power, I plugged in the network. From that, I'm going to go and add it to my environment. Now, what's different between being able to do that and Virtual Machine Manager 2008 is that back in 2008, you had to have the operating system installed. Once the OS was installed, we could go configure applications, we could go configure VMs. In some cases, you could go deploy the operating system to the VM. But now we're talking about the physical servers, not the VMs. You have a brand new physical server. It has no operating system on it. So how do we communicate with it? Well, every physical server that you buy, as part of its BIOS, it contains a series of programming interfaces that we can use called the Baseboard Management Controller, BMC. Basically, it's an interface that any vendor can work with to go and give the server types of commands, such as go and install this operating system, go and have this computer name, go and have this IP address. So what you're going to see here is us interact with this Baseboard Management Controller and go and pre-configure this brand new server and add it straight into our environment. Install the operating system on it, give it a name, get it up and running, and then add it as a Hyper-V host. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say I want to go and add a new Hyper-V host. You can also see I have the options for Citrix and VMware. And in this case, it is going to be a physical computer. It's going to be built, made as a Hyper-V host. So I need to go and specify an account that can actually go and interact with this. So that's my domain runners account. And then I get to select, this is how I communicate over the BMC, Baseboard Management Controller. And then I get to select what type of protocol I want to go and use with this to go and discover other types of information about the server, such as its IP address, things like that. So in this case, I have the ability to use IPMI once again, or I can use the Smash protocol, or I could go and use my own custom protocol. I get to specify an IP address range. Now remember, I've plugged in the power, I've plugged in a network cable, I'm in a dynamic environment, so I'm using DHCP. And once I plug in that networking cable, that server, it gets an IP address. So I know my DHCP server is scoped to this range. Plug in the server, it's going to get an IP address within this range. So I'm basically saying discover any servers that fit within this range. And so this is the list that it returns. It's gone out, it's scanned those IP addresses, and it's returned this list of about 20 different servers. And I'm going to go and deploy all of my components to this first physical server. Now, here's where I get to go and assign information beyond just installing the operating system, take it a step further, and getting some of the basic information down, such as my computer name, my passwords, my admin account. And I could give it a new IP address if I want at this point. So I'm going to give it a computer name, I'm going to give it a MAC address, and I'm going to use that same IP address. So basically, once this is added to the environment, I can start managing it directly. I get to confirm the information here. I'll click Finish. And we can see that the Hyper-V server has been added into my environment. So that's a quick overview of, hey, I got a brand new server. I want to go add it to my existing environment. Make that simple for me. We can do that today. So one of the favorite questions, how does Microsoft compare to VMware? Now, show of hands, who here uses VMware? So that's about the entire room. Okay. Who uses Hyper-V? All right, that's great. 30%, 40%. Who uses both Hyper-V and VMware? About 10, 20% of you. Okay, good information. So we always get asked, how does Microsoft compare to VMware? Well, we do want to set, expectations. I'm obviously a Microsoft stockholder. I work for Microsoft. I have my loyalties with Microsoft. But still, I'm going to try to give you, some very factual information. First of all, VMware, it's a great virtualization solution. We're never going to deny that. They have a great feature set. They've been in the market for a while. They're a very mature, very good product. But we're trying to do stuff that's different than them. They're great at virtualization. They've started to acquire lots of individual companies to try to move towards this model of a private cloud, but they're still a couple years behind. As you kind of look at the evolution of System Center, you had configuration manager back in 2003. Operations manager came a little later, then VMM, then data protection manager, service manager. We then purchased Opalis, which became Orchestrator. We then purchased Avicode, which got rolled into Operations Manager. And as those products got built, the integration honestly wasn't so great between them. It took a little time to get them to function at an equal level until System Center 2012 came out. That's our integrated story where all the products fit together great. VMware, they're still at that acquisition stage, purchasing different types of platforms for management, for operating, for security. So they're getting there. They'll be there in a couple of years. But right now, Microsoft still has this big advantage that we're ready with the private cloud today. So we like to say that we really do go beyond virtualization. As you look at all of the features that VMware has, that Microsoft has, with System Center 2012, we're at feature parity. We can do what they could do. In some cases, we can do more, such as shared nothing live migration. Probably one example I can think of that Microsoft doesn't have a solution for, VMware fault tolerance. But there's a lot of limitations around with that. So we haven't really invested a lot of time following that. But beyond that, it's feature equivalent. There's really no difference whether you get VMware, whether you get Hyper-V. We now have the same features. But we do offer the superior management with System Center 2012. We also offer multi-hypervisor management. So if you have both VMware, or maybe Citrix, and Hyper-V in the environment, manage everything from a single location. Don't need to go open up multiple consoles to manage everything. We have superior integration throughout the stack. Any hardware provider, any software provider that releases a product, they're going to want to work with Microsoft, or it's a bad business idea. One of Microsoft's big strengths is that it is positioned as the biggest software vendor in the world. And so because of that, any hardware, any software, it pretty much works with our products, making it easy acquisition, easier to support. We have familiar tools to IT pros and developers. So if you want to go and develop an application for your public cloud, for your private cloud, use .NET Framework, single set of tools. If you want to go manage different hypervisors, use Virtual Machine Manager, single set of tools, manage in broad environments. But beyond that, we have deeper application insight. And what I mean by that is both companies can monitor the hardware, the physical servers, the OS, even the virtual machines. But what we've tried to do in this release is go a step further and look at the applications within the virtual machine. So we made this acquisition of a company called Avocode about 2 years ago, and they do .NET performance monitoring of applications down to a very, very granular level. I'm going to show you that in a demo a little later. And with that, we can really see not only is the application working, but how well is it working? How performant is it? And this is the next step that we've tried to take with Operations Manager. We're no longer just looking at availability, is the service online or not? We're looking at performance as well. How well is the service running? Where are the bottlenecks? What can we do to make it better? How can we improve our relationship with the developer that built this application and the infrastructure specialist that deployed it? How can we make it as fast as possible? And then across the board, and I don't think many will argue here, Microsoft is a cheaper solution. So if you're looking at an equal feature set, cheaper solution, would certainly encourage you to keep thinking a little more about Microsoft. Now, if you want to see a pretty funny video, unfortunately with the internet limitations, I'm unable to show you it. Go to vm-limited.com. It has this guy up here, Tad, who is our joking representation of VMware, where he's stuck in the past, only focused on virtualization, and how Microsoft's trying to take it a step further. So, want a little fun? Go to vm-limited.com. Check that out. So let's actually take a look at what we do to go and manage VMware. How we have some different features, some different capabilities. So what I have here again is System Center Virtual Machine Manager. And from here, we are going to go and take a look at some of the properties of our cloud. So remember, I got my big cloud, and I've got my smaller clouds within it. So I'm going to take a look at the production cloud I have here. And looking at the resources, everything that can be used in my production cloud, I can see that I have some vSphere servers and some Hyper-V servers. As I go and look at the capability profiles, this basically means what types of services and servers can run in my cloud. You can see that I can select my ESX host. I can select Zen Server if I want to use Citrix. I can select Hyper-V. And I can select different types of VMs, different types of templates here. So now I'm going to go over to my fabric, and I'm actually going to go and deploy a new, or go and add my VMware cluster to my environment. So I currently have a vCenter server configured. vCenter is unfortunately still required to go and use Virtual Machine Manager to go and manage VMware. The reason why the individual ESX hosts, the VMware servers, they don't have a programmatic interface that we could go and communicate with. Remember, this is something that's going to be critical to manage a private cloud environment. So what we have to do is we go and programmatically interact with the vCenter server, and that vCenter server goes and interacts with the ESX hosts. Now, Citrix, on the other hand, there's no requirement for Zen Center. As long as you have Zen servers, we could go and directly communicate with those servers and do things such as Zen Motion, deploy the VMs, manage them like that. So again, you do have a requirement if you're using VMware to have vCenter here. So here I have my vCenter server. It's already configured in my environment. But now I'm going to go and add some hosts to my environment here. So I need to go and select an account to run this as. I'll use my vCenter admin account. So it's gone and scanned my environment, and it's found that I have this cluster here that hasn't been added to VMM yet. I want to go and manage that. I go and select a location to add it to, this host group. I'll click Finish. And we can see that now my VMware hosts, they've been added to my environment, so I can manage them from VMware. And I could do things such as load balancing with them, deploy VMs to them, use some of the new features of System Center 2012, like dynamic optimization. That's kind of a built-in load balancing feature. There we go, they're complete. Now I'm going to move to my library, and I'm going to quickly show you one of the other new features we've added, the ability to import VMware templates. So if you have your VMware templates, which defines how a virtual machine should be configured in VMware, we could go grab those templates, import them into our own library, into the Virtual Machine Manager library, and adjust all of the properties so they map back to Hyper-V properties. So we've deployed this. We're slowly migrating from VMware to Microsoft. We want to make it easy for you. Reuse the same templates. So in this case, I'm going to select 2 templates. They show up here. Great. And let's just take a quick look at some of the properties here. So if you go and look at one of these templates that I recently imported, we can see it has that same kind of look and feel as managing Hyper-V. You've got your hardware, you've got your general, you've got your storage configuration. So it's easy to go and reuse those back in your Hyper-V environment. So we talked about the infrastructure a lot, but what about the applications that are going to run in my infrastructure? Well, most of us here are probably IT infrastructure people, probably not many developers. But one of the big things that we're trying to improve with this release of System Center 2012 is the interaction between the developers and the infrastructure guy. Both of these people are critical to the organization. The developer writes the app. The infrastructure specialist gets it up and running, makes sure it performs efficiently. And so we're really trying to go and create a better bond, create better integration between these two groups so that your infrastructure runs better and your applications run better. So not every application is ideal for a private cloud. Certainly you could go and run any type of application inside a virtual machine. But when we want to try to take advantages of our self-service, our pooled resources, our elasticity, our usage-based monitoring, we really are trying to focus on a few types of applications that are going to make the most of this. So first type of application we think of is an application which goes on and off. So maybe this is the annual review website at your business. Once a year, it's very busy for 2 months. Rest of the year, it's unused. Busy for 2 months, unused for the rest of the year. So this is great for a private cloud because this is no longer a server that's sitting there being unused for 10 months of the year. You go put all of this service inside VMs, you use it for those 2 months, you scale up the capacity as you need. After the annual review period is over, you go destroy those VMs and go put those resources back for use in your resource pool. They could be used by a different service, a different application. So no unused hardware here. The next type of app that we like to look at is a new service with unpredictable growth patterns. How popular will it be? Is it worth buying new hardware for it if it might not be a success? We don't know, but using this model where you can go and monitor the usage of a VM, scale up the performance as it's needed, this is a great example of how you can use your private cloud environment, freely allocate resources to a service as it's needed. So the next type is something that's just unpredictable. We don't really know the traffic patterns. Something could be popular, maybe unpopular. And so an example of this would be patching traffic in your environment. So usually it's pretty regular, right? Every Tuesday, maybe a Tuesday a month. But every now and then you get one of those viruses that comes out where you have to go and quickly patch the entire environment. So how can you do that in a private cloud model? Well, if you're using Windows Server update services, go spin up new instances of those services. Deploy them in VMs. Handle all the patching traffic. Once the patch is done, it's been installed, you can go re-provision those VMs somewhere else. Then the final type of application is some type of predictable bursting, where we see cycles and we can scale up, scale down as we need. Good example of this would be your financial report system. Usually at the end of a quarter, everybody writes their reports, gets it in, there's a lot more traffic. Rest of the year, kind of flat, might be some peaks, but end of the quarter, it gets busy again. So just another good example of how you can leverage these different types of traffic patterns for an application. So now I'm going to show you this new feature of System Center 2012 Operations Manager called Application Performance Monitoring, also known as APM. This is this acquisition of this company called Avocode we made about 2 years ago. And the product, the technology, is directly loaded into Operations Manager. So first of all, what I have here, this is a dashboard view from Operations Manager that shows all the different tiers in my environment and shows whether they're healthy, whether they're unhealthy. So we're not just looking at a server here, but we could break it down and see what's on a server, a virtual machine. We could break down that virtual machine, see what's required to have the virtual machine functional. Storage, networking. So we could really break down this view and understand how our different tiers are structured so we can manage every component here. Now I'm going to jump into the application performance monitoring dashboard. This is fully customizable. Here I created 5 different widgets. I laid them out as I wanted, and I set different types of data to monitor. So I'm looking at the end user experience. So in this case, this is a website that I have. End user experience means if I go and try to access that website, is it good? Is it bad? Well, we see that based on the application availability that the website is functional, but we still have a warning here that says, something's wrong, go investigate, it's running, but maybe it's not running as good as it should be. So what we can do here is take a look at our alerts, and this is the type of detailed information that you're going to get with application performance monitoring. We say, hey, here's a problem, here's how bad it is, here's how long it's been happening, and we can go and learn more information about it. So what you see here is the detailed view of how that application is functioning. And what we've done is we can break down an application to the individual line of code, to the individual function call, to the individual SQL database query, and see how fast is it working. So if we have a bottleneck where a particular application is responding kind of slow, you always get asked the question, whose fault is that? Was the application badly written by the developer? Or is there a problem in the infrastructure? Maybe a particular switch going to that server is overloaded. What this is going to do is it's going to eliminate that guessing game, that back and forth between the developers and the infrastructure specialists. And it's going to allow us to say, here's exactly how fast this query is performing throughout that entire application. So what we've done is we've configured a threshold of 500 milliseconds to say, if this application takes more than 500 milliseconds to respond, send an alert. And we can see that we've taken a lot longer. We are at about 6.5 seconds. So first thing that we see here is TTFB, which is the time to the first bit. That's how long does it take for that first bit to get transferred from my server to the website. We can see that already exceeds the threshold. Next, we look at DOM ready, which is the document object model. How long does it take to load all of the forms, all of the services, all of the .NET components within the website? It's way more than my threshold. And then finally, we see how long is it for page ready, meaning how long does it take for the user to be able to fully interact with that web page. And we can see that I've gone way, way, way past this threshold. But we can see that the primary problem here is with the document object model. So good information that we can send to our developer. But I can also take a look at the server side, see how well the server is performing. And what I've done is we see an alert here. We can see that I've set a threshold of 250 milliseconds, and I'm already over that at 346. And we can see what type of application that's calling my server is taking that long to return. So we see what type of web browser people are using, what query path they used. More information so that when we want to go and reproduce this issue, it's easy for us. Now, another nice thing about this new integration that we have is Operations Manager is integrated with Microsoft's Team Foundation service, TFS. Basically, think of it as kind of a bug management portal for any type of project that involves coding. And so what you can do, this integrates with TFS. TFS integrates with Visual Studio. As soon as you have an alert, you can actually go and send that detailed information to TFS. It will go and open a new bug. It will populate that bug with all the detailed information that we have up here, and it will assign it to the appropriate developer, if that's configured. So what that means is your developer, he gets the bug almost instantly assigned to him. He has details of what caused the problem, what type of query was slow, so that they can really dive into it and try to optimize this inside the environment. So, hopefully you're getting a little more convinced that there's some advantages, but I next get asked, what about the private cloud? Can I use the public cloud and the private cloud at the same time? And the answer to that is, yes, you can. Now, what we do here with the public and the private cloud is Microsoft has a solution in both spaces. We have Windows Azure as our public cloud solution. We have Windows Server and System Center 2012 as our private cloud solution. And so using both of these, you could really take advantage of running infrastructure on-premise or running it on someone else's hardware. So with our public cloud, we have offerings in software as a service, platform as a service. Our private cloud, we have all different types of applications on-premise. But the big Microsoft advantage are the common technologies that we can use to span across them. So if you're a security expert, Active Directory goes from public to private cloud. Our identity model can federate in private clouds and public clouds. If you're an infrastructure specialist with virtualization, you can use Hyper-V, deploy VMs in your public cloud, deploy VMs in a private cloud. Using a similar set of tools. With management, we have System Center 2012. You're going to see App Controller shortly that shows you how to create instances, manage services in public cloud and in private cloud. And for your developers, we have the same application framework, Visual Studio with .NET. Create applications, public cloud or private cloud. So our big advantage here is using a single consistent set of tools to scale both. So let's take a look at a demo here, and I'm going to show you System Center 2012 App Controller. Now, App Controller is a new component that we've added in 2012 that gives you the ability to, it's basically a self-service portal, and you can assign users the ability to manage their private cloud virtual machines or subscriptions inside the public cloud. So first of all, I'm going to just quickly add a new subscription to Azure. I get to select some certificates. I get to provide passwords for the certificates, add a description, and I can see that I've now added a new Azure subscription. So I had to go ahead, go to windowsazure.com, pre-create it, give it a credit card and a phone number. But once I have that information, I can now manage my Azure subscription straight from here. Now I'm going to go into my services, and this is one of my services that I have here. I'm going to open it up, show you an overview of it. We can see this is hosted in the public cloud. It includes several instances, several resources. What I now want to do is I'm going to go and scale this out. So based on Operations Manager, monitoring the resource in the cloud, I find out that it's getting really well used. It's popular. I want to go deploy another instance so I can scale out. So doing that is as simple as changing the information here, clicking OK, clicking Update, and you can see that my instant count will go ahead and it will increase from 4 to 5. So scaling out is really as easy as clicking 3 or 4 different buttons to go deploy a new VM in your environment. But also scaling out in the public cloud is almost as easy as well. So here I have my public cloud application. It's my server app v app. Here we go. I can go take a look at it in the diagram. I see I have 4 different tiers, 2 middle tiers, a front end, a back end. And using this, I can simply say scale out. It asks me, do you want to add a new instance to this tier? Do I want to add a new VM? I say yes. I'll close this. I'll click refresh. Scale out operation has started. Click refresh once again. Scale out operation is complete. So you've seen in just 2 minutes me adding a new VM to my public cloud and a new VM to my private cloud using just a single interface, System Center 2012 App Controller. So next question I get is, how secure is the cloud? How compliant is the cloud? And in this case, we could be talking about the public cloud, we could be talking about the private cloud. But security is always an important part of it. Now, when we talk about security and compliance, we have to think that cloud is becoming popular. Governments and regulatory organizations, whether that's legal, healthcare, financial, they are now making requirements for things to work correctly and to be secure inside public clouds and inside private clouds. So you have to start thinking about not just security for this data center, but security for the clouds as well. Now, the big advantage of consolidating all of your resources, pooling all of your resources into a cloud, is that you also get to pool your expertise into a cloud. And so what I mean by that is, if you have a large IT department managing a big company, you probably have a security expert for that area, for that area, for that area. Maybe they don't talk together that well, but what we're doing now that we're consolidating our resources, we can also consolidate our knowledge about security so that we could try to implement these best practices of security across the entire environment. Now, if you think about a public cloud, that goes even a step further. With a public cloud, you have the world's best security experts consolidated, working on these security problems. Microsoft's been running public cloud services since 1994. And what I mean by that is Hotmail. Think about it. It's a website. You go, you get your email. No matter where you are in the world, you have email on demand, email as a service. So Microsoft has been doing this for 18 years. And sure, we've had vulnerabilities, we've been attacked, we've been hacked, but we have 18 years of expertise designed to try to solve that problem, to make security better. Same principles apply with compliance. If you have multiple compliance managers in your organization, you can consolidate their knowledge, bring it together. The next big advantage is having more endpoints to go and manage the environment. So let's say there's a virus out there that's going to attack 100 servers, and your organization has 150. Well, when that attacks, that's going to take out most of your infrastructure. But let's say you scale out. Let's say you've taken all those separate business units, consolidated it, and you now have 1,000 servers. Or if you're a public cloud, you might have 10,000 servers, 100,000 servers. Things like that aren't going to be as impactful. You lose 100 servers, no big deal. But more importantly, you now have more endpoints out there that can more readily detect when there's a problem. If you only have 100 servers, they might all be down before you realize there's a problem. If you're scaling out to thousands of servers, you're going to have better alert, better monitoring throughout the stack to help you realize that a problem is about to happen so that you can better respond to it. There is a solution accelerator called the Security and Compliance Manager that will actually go and help make sure that your organization and your servers are secure and compliant. Basically, it has a set of pre-configured baselines for particular laws, healthcare, legal, financial, and it will go and scan all of your servers and tell you which servers are compliant, which are not, and what's missing. So let's take a quick look at some of the security features that we have in System Center 2012. And this is called delegated access. Now, what we try to do here with System Center 2012 is constrain who can do what. What I mean by that is you have some users which should have full control of the environment, other users which should not. I mean, maybe you don't even want your boss touching your servers. So by kind of delegating the control, assigning different security restrictions and requirements to different users, you can better able to manage that environment. So what I'm going to do here is, I currently have 2 delegated administrator roles, and I'm going to go ahead and create a self-service user account. And so what this does is it's going to basically assign a certain set of requirements, a certain set of permissions to a set of user groups. So I'm going to go add my users. So anyone within these 3 user groups, I get to say where these users can interact with, in this case, this private cloud. I then get to assign capacity to both individuals and to that group as a whole. So if I don't want my self-service users taking up all of the virtual machines in my environment, we could say, hey, you only get 6 virtual machines for the whole group. Each of you can only go and deploy 1. So this is, again, restricting who can do what in the environment. I now can give people access to particular resources. So this group, they can have access to all of the templates. That's okay with me. But if we want to say that this type of user can only have access to their applications, you can do that. Next, you say, what type of actions can this individual user have? Can they deploy VMs, create new VMs, make self-service requests, pause a VM, patch it, delete it. You have the ability to go and say exactly what each of them can do. We're now going to add a run as account, which basically says when they're interacting with the services, what type of local administrator and security credentials can they have. We'll give them domain access. We'll confirm, and then we see that I've now created a self-service user role, scoped down to a particular number of VMs per user and for the entire group. So, a lot of people now ask me, well, this private cloud sounds great, but if I'm building in all of this scripting, all of this automation, could it take away my job? And that's a question that, unfortunately, we get asked a lot. But we do want to try to encourage you that that's really not going to happen. We really believe that it's going to make your job better. And the reason for that is, as we build in this automation, this standardization, that's eliminating repetitive tasks. If you think about what we can automate, if you think about what we can standardize, those are activities, services, offerings that are going to be consistent every time you do it. If we need to write a script, we know exactly how it's going to function every time. And so our goal here is to take away those repetitive tasks from you, eliminate the boring things, re-racking server, redeploy this VM, and essentially allow you to spend more time working on new projects. Spend more time improving the business rather than repetitive maintenance. Probably most of you have a long checklist of things that you want to do, but you spend so much time on these repetitive tasks. It can be hard to do that. Again, you start building automation, it's an upfront investment, but it's going to save you time in the long run. But what's best about this as well, it's going to make you more valuable into your company. And the reason for this is you're now adding new value to the business. Before, you were maintaining the business. Now you can be enhancing it. You could provide twice as many services. You can make each of the service function faster. You can make happier customers. As soon as a developer completes a product, IT department can say, yes, I can go deploy that tomorrow. Instead of, oh, let me go order a server, it'll be here in 3 months. So what we're really trying to do is enable the IT department to be more responsive, to be a better business partner, to be a yes person. Business says, I want to do this tomorrow. IT says, yes, we can support you. So that's our goal, really trying to make IT department more valuable and make the individuals more valuable in the company as well. Now, System Center 2012, we touched on this, but the license includes all System Center components now. You don't just buy VMM, you don't just buy Operations Manager. When you buy System Center 2012, you get everything that comes with it. And the reason for that is we're still trying to help you guys get ready for the private cloud. Even if you're not going to go and use Orchestrator today, you're not going to use App Controller today, we don't want licensing to be a restriction from preventing you from getting it, from using it in a year's time, in 2 years' time. So our model of why we included everything in System Center 2012 is really to encourage you to try it out, to start using it, to start cloud optimizing, test it out, do demos, do side projects. For new things that you're doing, new applications, deploy those in the private cloud. You don't have to switch everything you're doing today. It's a gradual process, but there's definitely some advantages to getting going. And so we want to enable you to take full advantage of that as soon as possible. Now, final thing, what do I need to do to convince my company? I'm sold. I like this idea of private cloud. Who do I need to speak to? Well, remember, talk about the ability that the IT department can bring to the business. Tell your CIO, we're going to allow the business to focus on the business and not worry about restrictions from IT. We're going to be more agile. As soon as there's a new product that's ready to be released, we could go do it. We are now yes men. We're ready to go and support the business as they need. And this is going to help the business from the economic perspective. There's lower upfront costs. They're just adding services to existing servers. No need to go purchase new servers. This reduces the financial risk. Only pay for what you use if you're a specific business unit within the IT department. Maximize company revenue. You go deploy a service quicker, it's up and running quicker. Company starts making more money. You have better high availability. Remember, when a service goes down in the company, that service is no longer making money. But where you come in, if you can optimize for high availability, redundancy, That means there's more uptime. More uptime means your company is making more money. And of course, less physical hardware. These are some of the consolidation benefits you heard around virtualization. You get a smaller data center, less money you're spending on networking, storage, physical space, power, cooling, better resource consumption, better green IT initiatives. Now, I'm going to show you the final demo here that wraps everything up that we've talked about and shows you how we move into this broad model of a private cloud. Now, what I'm going to do here is open up several different System Center components. So I have Service Manager, I have Orchestrator, I have Operations Manager. And we're going to see how these three different components fit together to provide this private cloud experience. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go load a website, and then we're going to go crash the website, and we're going to automatically recover this. So say your company's business is selling goods online. When that website goes down, your company loses money. We're going to keep this website up and running. We're going to keep our company making money. So I'm going to simulate crashing this website. So when I reload, it should be down. And so this is hosted on IIS, website on IIS. And what we're basically going to do is we're going to try some pre-configured troubleshooting steps to try to get that service up and running as quick as possible. So again, we have Operations Manager, we have Service Manager, and we have Orchestrator running. So as soon as that website goes down, first thing we're going to do is detect the problem using System Center Operations Manager. I could go and I can see that my Dinner Now application is unavailable. We've detected the problem. So let's take a look at Service Manager and see what happens here. Well, Operations Manager and Service Manager are integrated. When we hear about a problem, it gets reported, we go and open up a ticket so the IT department is aware of it. And Service Manager's basically got IT department's management system of the entire environment. So as I go take a look at my work items, I can take a look at all my open incidents. I'm going to filter for my Dinner Now application. And I can see that this problem, this website, is down. Operations Manager detected the problem. It created a ticket in Service Manager. So if I go and look at the details of this, take a look at the activities, I can see that whenever I hit this problem, I'm going to automatically start my web application remediation activity. And what that means is I have a pre-configured activity in Orchestrator that's going to go and run as soon as we need to. So as I go open up Orchestrator, I see I have pre-configured runbooks that says, hey, as soon as we have a problem, let's test the website, make sure it's really down. Or maybe we had a temporary glitch in the network. If it's now up, we mark it as resolved. If it's still offline, we're going to try troubleshooting step number 1. Restart our IIS service. Test the website again. If it's running, we can mark it as resolved. If not, we're going to try a more advanced troubleshooting step. In this case, we're going to restart our application pools for IIS. We'll then test the website again. If it's up and running, mark it as resolved. If not, our pre-configured troubleshooting steps, they didn't work. We need some additional investigation. So we're going to go and create a new alert in Service Manager and tell our IT department that we have a problem. They need to go investigate further. So if I go and refresh our Service Manager, I can see that these incidents have gone away. Hopefully that means one of my resolutions worked. As I go take a look at Ops Manager and refresh that, I see my alerts have changed. So finally, we're going to go back in and test our website. And our website is now back up and running. So what you saw here is our end-to-end integration across all the products. We crashed a website, we detected the problem, we alerted the IT department, and we automatically resolved it. And these are some of the biggest strengths that you're going to see with System Center 2012 as it takes you towards this model of a private cloud. Now, as we wrap it up, that's the key to the presentation, but I do encourage you to go and download this set of slides. There are a lot of great resources that we've recently released, including our Server and Cloud blog, the Microsoft Virtual Academy, which gives you free online training for a lot of private cloud courses. We have private cloud IT camps, which are half-day, one-day, two-day courses that are free, where you could go and get trained with hands-on activity from other technical evangelists around the world. We have our private cloud evaluations You could download them, actually try the product yourself. We have our private cloud virtual labs. So many of the demos I did today, you can actually simulate them online yourself, aka.ms PC Labs. Try them out. We have new private cloud certifications from Microsoft Learning, including courses that support them. And we have a lot of customer evidence out there. So depending on your industry, depending on your country, the product, the brand, the size of your organization, you can find live case studies, real case studies from other customers, how they've adopted this private cloud model. And finally, we're very active on social media. So quickly, true or false, and then we're done. Virtualization is just one part of the private cloud. True, it is just one part. There's a lot more to the private cloud than just virtualization. System Center Virtual Machine Manager 2012 is in the private cloud. It is a component of the private cloud. Yes, that is also true. The Microsoft private cloud consists of multiple products. True. We have our hardware, our software, our management layer, and our customization. Traditional data centers, private clouds, and public clouds can be managed by a single set of products. Yes, System Center 2012 can give you that. And finally, you could buy separate System Center 2012 products. Ah, that was a trick. That's the only false one on the screen. No, you buy System Center 2012, you get everything because we want you to adopt the private cloud and have all of the resources that you need today. So as we wrap it up, please go ahead, please complete an eval if you like the session. You don't have to if you didn't, that's fine. But we'll wrap it up now. I apologize for running over. I certainly hope you found the demos useful even with our limited internet. And please go check out VMware-Limited for some funny videos and the Microsoft Virtual Academy for free training. Thank you.